My name is Pradeep Malik. I'm representing a German company in India. We are manufacturing harvester combines. And we have been working with you, Mr. Deveshwar, with ITC through your e-Chopal initiatives. And I have seen your setup also near Bhopal, and I must congratulate you. This is the excellent thing, the most impressive thing I've seen during my stay in India. We have also developed a new machine, and we would be very keen to work together with you. And I would like to know from you, what are your expansion plans? At the same time, Mr. Pandey, because we are going for, India needs more and more mechanization. We heard that 60% of India's population is depending upon the agriculture, compared to just 2% in United States. And we have heavy losses. This year we were forced to import wheat from Australia. And if you go for mechanization, you can improve yield. And this is the question which we have to ask. And Mr. Deveshwar, we have to convince the government also to stringent their norms so that we use more efficient machines so that we can improve the yield, because the middle class is growing very rapidly in India, and our population is also expanding. So we would need more and more food in future, and we don't have to import that.
I would request Mr. Deveshwar to just explain what is the expansion plan of e-Chopal, and probably Sandep can comment on your comment, in terms of machine,
whether he is against mechanization.
Productivity versus mechanization.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, the whole idea of what we are doing is to create connectivity and set up an infrastructure which is composed of digital, human, and physical infrastructure, so that you can facilitate the flow of goods and services in both directions. In a sense, it is really bringing modern retailing, what Walmart might do in an urban setting, or a modern retailing might do for the urban consumer. We are trying to do this for the farmer, which means that we bring convenience and choice to the farmer. We bring a number of suppliers to the doorstep of the farmer so that he can exercise choice while buying, whether it is inputs or it is equipment such as yours, or any consumer requirements in the rural setting. And similarly, we want to give a choice to the farmer to make a sale to any one of his or her choice when agri-commodities are being sold. So this is and the whole infrastructure is based on, for every 5 or 6 villages, there would be one e-Chopal, which is there's a kiosk-based communication network that supplies information to the farmer. And for about 25 or 30 e-Chopals, there would be a Chopal Saga, which would actually be a storage place for agri-commodities towards the outward journey. I mean, there are a whole host of things that can be done with it. So this infrastructure will provide all kinds of services, whether insurance, microcredit, educational services, health services, inputs such as yours. But I want to just tell you, the days of scale are not anymore relevant. As you know that in Israel, you can produce on a 1 hectare of greenhouse, you can produce 400, 500 tons of tomato. What is required is really empowering the farmer with know-how and technology, modern technology. Our farmers have farm sizes on an average, less than 1 hectare. So one of the ways we deliver this kind of mechanization is if they can come together as a virtual sort of producers cooperative, and instead of buying a harvester or buying a tractor, they can lease it and use it amongst themselves. So this is what we are attempting to do. As I mentioned to you, our objective is we are aiming to invest about $1 billion in creating this infrastructure. And in the next 10 years, we should be serving about 100,000 villages, accounting for about 10 million farmers. So this is what our aspiration is. But then the number of things need to be done before we can accomplish our plans. A lot of reform needs to be done. As you know, the old system is more a monopolistic system where the farmer has to go to the sort of state-run markets where the market participants are unionized. So there is a thing called APMC Act. It sort of changes the law to enable the farmer to sell to anybody that he likes. It doesn't have to be restricted in terms of selling to a particular agency. So this is what we're trying to do. But it has to go hand in hand with the reforms in our legal framework, as well as our ability to mobilize the farmers to resist the artiya, the money lender, who in this process sort of stands relatively weakened. He has to work harder to earn. He has to deliver real service rather than lend money at usurious rates and also gyp him on every bit of the transaction. So this is what we are attempting to do. I hope it answers your question.
Sandep.
Well, I thought I had already answered that question. What I meant when I made a comment there was a country like India, which, as you mentioned, has a large population involved in agriculture sector. We have to be very careful about industrialization in this sector. So, for example, industrialization in or mechanization in transportation and communication may be a good thing. You may need the state-of-the-art technology and very high-speed communication and transportation technology. But so far as agriculture is concerned, if you go in for mechanization, that is bad for this country because there's a huge population which depends on agriculture. And that is why, as I mentioned earlier, the first act which guarantees employment in rural areas forbids machines. And if our parliament has passed this act, they have a good reason to do it. And I know of farmers and laborers who have protested against combined harvesters. In UP, we get these harvesters from Punjab and Haryana. And our farmers and laborers detest it. They don't like these machines coming in because they lose their jobs. So I am of the view that in agriculture sector, we don't need mechanization. In fact, the Green Revolution process has damaged our agriculture greatly because it has broken the cycle of agriculture where the farmer used to depend on the animals and on the organic fertilizer. And now we are going back in that direction. I mean, first we experimented with chemical fertilizers and pesticides. And now the government itself is saying that we need to go in the direction of organic farming. We should not be using chemical fertilizers and pesticides because they are damaging our crops and fields. And one government which is officially pushing in that direction is government of Uttaranchal, which is an official program for organic farming now. So we have given up our traditional method of farming and we have taken to corporate farming or industrialized farming, which I think is not in the interest of the farmers and the laborers of this country.
If you mechanize and if mechanical means or automation is used as a means of productivity enhancement, then labor will be thrown up. I think ever since the Industrial Revolution, this has been a challenge. This is a challenge when it comes to modern retailing, because if you have modern retailing, then obviously there is more productivity. So what should our strategy be? Because productivity is required for the purposes of creating savings for reinvestment, and that would create jobs. So to get a virtuous cycle of growth and creating more jobs of a different nature, that is a challenge. In my understanding, what we need to do is to increase productivity, but create a a policy framework within which food processing industry, manufacturing industry that uses renewable raw material resource, which is an output of our farms, that is given a high degree of importance in terms of competitiveness, and that India should be converted into a food basket of the world. And we need to get our connectivity to a level where we can get traceability, we can get information and knowledge to the farmers, so that the use of fertilizer, use of pesticides, the overdependence on rain, all those that he is able to, is empowered enough to be able to use his meager resources to get better productivity, to produce what the consumer wants. So this is the sort of virtuous cycle of productivity-led, but creating jobs based on farms-linked manufacturing. That is at the, that's what I understand should be our approach. Otherwise, we can shun every mechanization. Why do we need telephone? Because then we should be able to send people from one place to another to be able to, transmit information. Many more people would be required then to be able to communicate. So this is my understanding, and that we need not shun modern technology, but we have to make sure that we have a strategy that creates more jobs and absorbs people who are rendered surplus as a result of productivity. India's biggest problem is that whilst we are number 1 and number 2 in total output, but in productivity we are very, very backward. And to that degree, I do not agree with my learned colleague that we should, we should retain old methods of doing work, because that requires more people. But I do share his sentiments that we cannot have development only for an island of people, that we need to extend ourselves and get more inclusive growth and bring those disadvantaged people that he just showed who are not getting the benefits of economic growth. We need to envelop them into the mainstream. So I do agree with the objective, but I'm afraid I thought that since I'm sitting at on the dais, that I would speak up for that. Automation is not necessarily bad, providing it's part of a strategy to create more jobs.
So some of these are really also ideological issues, and they may take another 5,000 years to resolve, or may not get really resolved. But what I understand is that given the challenge, you do require an approach of and not necessarily or. So therefore, you need to fight for human rights, and you also need to fight for productivity. Next question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Sydney Ribeiro, Delhi University, Cambridge, and more importantly, the YMCA, which is the world's oldest NGO, 1844. This has been perhaps the most unique panel because you have a tremendous dialectic at the dais. You have a purely humanist, aggressively human tradition defendant, and you have someone who's outward-looking, forward-reaching, and seeking to marry the two challenges of yesterday, today, and bring them into tomorrow. So there is a big effort here to bridge the divide. First, by way of information, Mr. Moderator, there are a number of network systems.
Could we please have the question? Because we have a little restriction on the time. So if we could come to the question immediately, that will really help us.
Would it be possible to marry the dialectics of the two through a time-bound system of training the trainers through the e-Chopal or the pitch-to-fork system in the Punjab, or the farm forestry on one side, and the people like Sandep on the other, who could be then trained over a period of 5 to 7 weeks, 5 to 7 months gradually acquiring technological skills, understanding the mechanics of modernization and technology, and create a world order in our country which marries the two and moves towards the future.
If you want, you address the question to me?
Yeah.
I think that's precisely our model. What we are trying to do is to we empower people through providing extension services. And these extension services are traditionally provided by employees of the state. The state governments normally provide extension services. But what we've done is we've wrapped it. The business model has got these extension services, or motivation for extension services is wrapped around the commercial purpose of creating productivity at the farm end so as to make the entire value chain competitive so that we can, at the consumer end, be competitive globally. So this is sort of enlightened self-interest, right? This is only one dimension, but then there are other dimensions. Sorry, you want me to?
No, he also wants him to respond.
Oh, he wants him to respond. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
One only suggestion,
All right.
Mr. Moderator,
No,
is that if we can convince the other side
Yeah.
that we're not displacing but enriching and glorifying a world which is both modern
I
and
appreciate
traditional.
that. We are working along with NGOs. I can tell you in many areas we are working, for example, the animal husbandry program that we have got, or water harvesting program, the watershed program, to empower the village communities. In a sense, we're trying to convert them from being village communities to economic organizations. So we are actually taking help from NGOs only, because they are the people who've got the motivation to build capacity amongst the people. You can see that his heart belongs there, right? The formulae may be disagreement, but I respect the quality of his heart, that he sort of bleeds for the disadvantaged. So we actually want to work in partnership with NGOs to do that for delivery.
Yeah, I would like to make a comment at this point because I think there was some misunderstanding. I had already made it very clear that I am not opposed to industrialization. You definitely need industrialization and mechanization in areas where it will help you. And actually, a very good way of looking at what is useful and what is not is to follow Gandhi's talisman. That think about things from the point of view of the last person in the society. And then you decide what is good and what is not. So mechanization and transportation and communication is definitely good because it helps. And huge populations did not depend on these sectors before the advent of industrialization. But so far as agriculture is concerned, it's a completely different scenario. We have a huge population which depends on agriculture, and if you bring in machines, you are throwing people out of job. And that is why it is bad. So that is why government has banned machines only in unskilled labor in rural areas. Now, I definitely recognize the importance of technology. I mean, I have moved from doing a PhD in control of uncertain dynamical systems to grassroots social activism work. But I do realize that technology is not always used for the benefit of human beings. There are other interests. And therefore, I would, for example, support a thing like Lokwani, which is a website which reveals information to the people. This is an experiment which is being tried in Sitapur district by the district magistrate, where he has computerized all records. You can register a complaint to the district magistrate over computer from your block office by paying a fee of 10 rupees. You don't have to travel to the tehsil or the district headquarters. The district magistrate will see the complaint by the end of the day and then will order an action on it. And things have speeded up. It has helped solve people's problems. So definitely a technological intervention like that helps. But we have to be selective. I mean, we have to be careful, and we have to see what helps the people and what does not. We should not be going in for technology just because it helps the corporations, as Dilipji was saying earlier, or because it helps some other interest. So that's the comment I have to make.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Yes.
My name is Tripurari Sharan. I head the Film and Television Institute of India in Pune. Very brief questions. Both of you, addressed to both of you. One is that, as a people, as a nation, a lot of us are preoccupied with this inclination of, looking at people in terms of very undifferentiated, mass categories. We talk about bureaucracy, we talk about businessmen with very undifferentiated kind of value imputations for each of these categories. Whereas we also know that any organization or any mass system is only as good as its people or the people who man them. So taking off from there, while I would ask Sandep to answer the question whether we actually need to intervene instead of looking for state intervention, we need to intervene more in the area of social reform, not in terms of removing untouchability or, any of those traditionally held notions of social reform, but reform in terms of values. I'm not even saying modernist values or any of those kind of values, but values which are compatible with your stated objectives of growth. And to that extent, the question goes to Mr. Deveshwar. We are all talking about financial markets, capital markets, labor markets. Why aren't we talking about a marketplace of ideas? I think if there's one thing which India really lacks today, it is a marketplace of ideas where we can move beyond the competing ideologies and actually look at what we need in terms of ideas that work at the ground level, which can find a consensual kind of adoption by people, and ideas which have acceptance across most ideological streams, because competing ideologies will keep competing. And what Sitaram Yechuri says today, I know 25 years ago he would not accept saying that same thing. I've seen him over the last 25 years. So those mutations will keep taking place. So, reform in terms of value systems and marketplace of ideas, both of you can answer according to your convenience.
Well, I think the biggest problem is the difference in emoluments of two sectors. There is the service sector in this country, which draws salaries or incomes disproportionate to its contribution to the economy. And there is the working class, the laborers, the artisans, who are denied even the basic minimum wage. So, in addition to technological interventions wherever they suit you, I think there's a need for a major haul-up so that the income differences are reduced. And this can only be a political decision. So we need a change in values there. I mean, we have to look at it from completely different viewpoint. I mean, we have to ensure that people in this country, and we have a huge talent. I mean, we have people producing wonderful things, and it is a shame that in this era of new economic policies, they are being pushed out from the market because of corporations. We have to really bring them up. We have to ensure that they have a respectable life. They have a livelihood which can sustain their families, and they can live with respect. And I think it is really a shame, talking of the question of mechanization in agriculture, it is not that we don't produce enough food grains. We obviously, I mean, the Food Corporation of India godowns are full of food grains. But on the other hand, you have situations like starvation deaths. And a technological intervention will not change this. You need other things. You need political intervention. You need social intervention. You need to look at things from a different point of view. You need a different value system to change this scenario. Thank you.
There was a session earlier, I don't know whether you attended it. It was China versus India, or China with India. One of the things that I believe that differentiates India from China, this growth that we are witnessing is based on entrepreneurship. When we began to reform and liberalize, we ended up unshackling this private entrepreneurship. What we really need to do is to spread this entrepreneurship into the depths and breadths of India, even into rural India. But of course, that requires, for entrepreneurship to flourish, you require infrastructure, both physical and social, as a basis for doing so. So one of the things we do not have any lack of is a debate and ideas, and a contest of ideas. As a matter of fact, if at all one were to criticize our own society, it is that we perhaps suffer from democratic fundamentalism. We do not seem to move forward, and we debate, quite a lot. Somewhere we need to stop debating and get on with action. But the issue of ideas and the market for ideas, I think, manifest in this intellectual property rights. That if you have a good idea, you can actually, have it patented, and then begin to derive value from it. So it is an incentive to create newer ideas. But of course, the other viewpoint would be that those ideas that are good for society should be made available to society rather than be the preserve of individuals. And I agree with you that there is a sort of a stereotype of whether it's bureaucracy or politician or business or NGO as to what they or they do not do. I think we have all varieties amongst our society, and what we need to do is to create a climate where first everybody has to learn to ask not what somebody else can do, but what can I do to help the situation. Very often we end up criticizing somebody else for not doing his job. But we need to, I think, turn it around and say, what does business do? How can it contribute? How can I contribute? How can my company contribute? And similarly, all sections of society have to begin to ask this question, that what can I do to help bridge this divide? That is the subject today. And my belief is that India will succeed in those areas in a globalized economy where there is a content of ideas that is wrapped in our selling proposition. And we can actually differentiate ourselves in that respect. And I also agree with you that India's demographics is a strength, but it can become a strength if we can create opportunities, create jobs. We require 9 to 10 million jobs created every year. And we need to create employability of these people. Otherwise, it will become a demographic disaster. So the challenge is huge, and I think we need to, we need more debate and more resolve and more commitment and more leadership to be able to come and contribute to bridging this divide. Thank you.
This question is from Mr. Sandep Pandey. I'm very curious that why is our ruling class not bothered about corruption and crime and such things which are offshoots of corruption? What could be the reasons? Just want his opinion.
Because we are not supposed to be that way. Corruption is a product of educated class. Uneducated have nothing to do with corruption. That is my simple answer.